Okay, hello again and welcome to day 11 of learning to build reliable and scalable voice AI agents and infrastructure on Pipecat. Next steps, I've got to figure out the client-server communication with RTVI issue that was having in the last session, and then we have to finish the call flow prompting, and then have to figure out a deployment architecture for this widget project. So we'll get to that. Okay, so I was previously thinking I needed to define a custom event to communicate the navigation message between the server and the client, but actually I think it makes a lot more sense to make use of the LLM function call event, which is already there. And I've been looking through the Pipecat and Web SDK source code, and there's, in the example, this is what example, you can see the pattern that subscribes to events. And I think I'll just reuse this with the LLM function call event. And there's actually in the RTVI a way to handle the function call already in there. So I believe I can reuse that. So that's what I've done in my flow config. I've modified the request navigation function to use that handle call event using the function name navigate, and then I will send the path I want to navigate to. And then over in the widget, I'm trying to subscribe to that event and then navigate accordingly. And the only thing is that this isn't working just yet. So I have some logs of the event call, the function call, appearing in the completion, but it's not appearing in the console logs when I actually run this. So I've still got to figure that out. But this approach feels right, and the way it feels right, the reason it feels right, rather, is because, let me start a new one. Okay, so previously, the way I had this set up in Vapi, right, you've got Vapi servers here, Vapi's servers. Okay, and then I had my own widget, sort of client side here, like my widget. And Vapi sends events and messages in the same way this Pipecat thing does to your server, updating on function calls. Right? Now with Vapi, the way you have to set up function calls is with an external URL, because the idea is that a function call is something that sends particular arguments to an external API and then gets a result back. Okay, so it sends arguments here, like in a request, right? And then you get a result back in another sort of JSON result. You get your result back. Now the thing about this widget is that there isn't actually an external API. It's just the fact of getting this communication and a request with arguments that makes it do the action. So in Vapi's tool config, I had to set the external server to just HTTPS and then dummy, just a dummy URL, because it was a required argument there. You have to set the URL for this supposed external API. So that was a bit of a hack. But with Pipecat, I have the flexibility to just notify the client of the fact that I'm trying to call a function, and then based on that, take action in the client. You see? So this feels like the right approach. So I'm just going to continue to pursue that until it works. Okay, here's the situation. So I've been able to confirm that the client is receiving messages through the daily WebSocket, which should be able to redirect it to the consultancy, right? So there's a navigate function as an LLM function call coming in through the WebSocket. The thing is, this event handler is not actually handling the event. I've tried other event handlers like the bot connected and stuff; those work. I've tried adding a lower level event handler to try and log everything; those didn't work. And I'm just still gonna have to try and figure this out. Okay, this was a pretty tough nut to crack, but here's what's happening. So this is where the RTVI client handles incoming messages. And as you can see, it switches by type and then looks for various messages and passes it on to the appropriate callback. So for the LLM though, the LLM messages that it handles have nothing to do with functions. There's a text one started and stopped. Nothing for function callbacks though by default, which suggests that this is just registering by default, like the core framework messages, if you like. And then there's a default function which looks for any additional registered helpers and then passes the handling to the handle message of that helper. And there's a function here to register helpers in your client so that this happens, this gets called here. And that was the missing step. So in the LLM thing, actually, there is then a helper that we can use right here. And once you've registered that, the handle message function will be used, and this already handles the LLM function call and will emit an event of type LLM function call, which is what we want, which is what we're listening for over here. And all that I had to add was this little block here, so that when the widget component mounts, we create a new LLM helper and register the helper on the client, and also put a little callback function there that will actually run when those events come out. Okay, so now I can, and also as you can see, when I run it now, I actually get this happening in the logs. So yeah, I can build on top of that now. Okay, so I removed the additional logging and also the callback in favor of the reactive hook, which we'll use. And this is the key line here. So all I'm doing now is logging the fact that a navigation request has been received and the path that the navigation has been requested to, because I don't actually have anything else in this, and I'm just making a reusable component. When I copy this over to my website, then I'm just going to have to basically have a router.push thing in here. But this is basically good to go, and I can just get working on the actual call flow now. Okay, so I'm actually cracking on with the whole flow prompting logic here, but there's a couple of errors I just fixed that I think I should probably let you know about. So so this is running in dev mode, right? So PNPM dev, okay? And because of that, it's running in strict mode, which fires off all of the hooks twice to help developers identify whether there are any issues with their effects and their side effects. So it turns out well, there was, I guess. So I wasn't checking whether or not the helper was already registered. So I was getting, if this works, let me show you when I refresh this. Yeah, I was getting this error. So I fixed that by checking whether or not it's registered, and now you can just run it all you like. And the other thing is that I wasn't gracefully cleaning up the client process, disconnecting it once the bot had left the room. So what happens there
I'm Chris of Voice AI
Name's
Agent.
John.
Great, John.
Consultancy, please.
Thanks so much, John.
Okay, so it's left, and now everything's just breaking, right? You see like all these errors. Okay, so let's just refresh again. And now with this little cleanup function, which happens when the bot is disconnected, if you run it again,
Hi there.
name is John.
Great to meet you, John.
Consultancy, please.
Thanks so much for your time, John. Have a great day.
And there we go. We probably run into these kinds of errors, so just thought I'd let you know. Okay, so I'm still working on my prompting and my flow. I don't think it makes much sense right now to demonstrate and test that like in a recording until it's like to my satisfaction. So I've been doing some testing and it doesn't work quite as I want it yet. So I'm going to carry on doing that and get it until I think it's sort of production ready, and then maybe I'll record trying to break it during demonstrations. What might make sense though to wrap up today is actually having a look at the deployment architecture that I'll need. So this was Vapi's sort of thing. So what I've got, let me just go through what I've built so far, right? So we have a server, fast API server. Okay. And this creates rooms on daily, in Daily's like cloud infrastructure. So this is daily, and within this you get like a room. And when the client over here interacts with the widget, it sends a request to the fast API server asking for a room. Ask for room. The fast API server creates the room and sends a bot there. Can you even see the arrow? Okay. Okay. And so back to the client comes a room ID. And then the client can use this information to connect to the room. I'm going to have to practice a bit with Excalibur. And then they have a chat. Okay. So the client, this is all going to be written as a Next.js app hosted on Vercel. Okay. So over here, this will be Vercel. Now the actual fast API server, this is creating sub-processes for each room that it creates and each bot that it manages within that room. So this is a long-running process and it's stateful. Therefore, it's not suitable for a stateless environment like Vercel. So this is going to have to be hosted on my own server. For now. I'll probably spin up a VPS for that. I say for now because what's coming is actually something called Pipecat Cloud, I believe. I'll have to check. But essentially, Daily, the team that's supporting building and maintaining this open source Pipecat project, is upgrading their Daily Bots platform and making it so you can deploy your Pipecat written bots onto there. And that would be a scalable architecture. And you can also, that's going to support Pipecat flows. And I've heard that that's coming in February. So it depends how quickly I get like this done, I guess. I mean, I probably, well, February is actually the end of this week. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'll get this bot done by the end of this week, but there's obviously more to do as well. So we'll figure that out. I'm going to have just this, my lead qualification bot, because it's low volume. I'm probably just going to have that on a VPS, as I mentioned, because there's not going to be many people using that at once, I imagine. But for my platform that I want to build, that's the sort of thing where scalable infrastructure is helpful. So rather than the VPS, you might want to use Amazon Web Services. So look into that. So that's just a quick overview, and hope that's helpful. And I'll be back tomorrow.